Again, you can do this with a towel, but I happen to have this cute little tool. If you wouldn't mind coming over here. So what I do is now that it's ready, I'm just going to unplug it. And this little diverter, oh, well, it already came down by itself. Wow. How do you like that? That's how fast it came down. I don't know if you can get a close up inside, but you can see how it became this like dark, rich, beautiful color as if it had been sauteing for hours. So we'll just leave that there. And we'll come over to the stove because the water will almost boil and we're going to make our base. So polenta is very similar to cornmeal, except it's much less finely ground. So it's not as mushy when you cook it. Like cornmeal, sometimes people eat cornmeal mush or grits, for example. So once this is cooked, it's going to create almost like a cornbread consistency for the base. And like I said, this was available in my Raley's. It wasn't some exotic grain like teff. Not that teff is all that exotic, especially if you live in Africa, but it's very easily findable, and everything for sure is available on Amazon. So as soon as the water boils, I'm going to be putting it into the pot and then using a nonstick, whatever this is called, because I don't want to scratch my pot. And because I don't use oil and I don't want to even use that nonstick spray or keep wasting parchment paper, you can get these beautiful 9 by 13 inch pans at Bed Bath & Beyond and Walmart and Amazon. And that's what I like to use for this. So my water is almost boiled. You can see the little bubbles. And then what I'm going to do, polenta cooks very, very quickly. One of the quickest cooking grains, almost as fast, maybe faster than oats. So now I'm going to pour in a little bit at a time and stir it. And this is going to thicken quickly. Now, usually what I like to do is put in a little bit of Italian seasoning in this, but I noticed right before it was time to log on that I was out of Italian seasoning. So I'm not going to put it in. Italian seasoning is basically a blend usually of basil, rosemary, oregano, thyme, sometimes marjoram. It's not going to make a huge difference in the taste, but if I have it, I like to put it in. It makes little specks. And so I just kind of stir it around, and it does thicken very, very quickly. And I'm going to turn the heat down a little because I have gotten a polenta burn, because once it starts, it kind of pops out of it. So it's better not to rush it. Yeah, you can't feel this, but I can feel it as I'm moving it around, the stirring mechanism. It's like getting thicker and thicker. And again, cooking doesn't have to be that difficult. The main thing is preparation and also practice. You know, cooking is, if you've never cooked, or you could hire somebody, you can get one of those wonderful vegan food delivery services, or you can just do what everybody does when they're trying to get to Carnegie Hall and practice. And it can be very fun and therapeutic. You can use your batch cooking time to do things like watch this conference, for example. I always listen to podcasts while I'm cooking, so it doesn't feel like it's such a chore. And I know that I'm doing the best thing for myself by making my own food, because, you know, restaurant food's delicious, but it's generally not very healthy and it's very expensive. So this is almost done, and the bubbles are starting now, so I'm turning it down even more because I don't want to get another nasty polenta burn. It's almost done. This did not take long at all. I don't even think this took 5 minutes. I think I wrote on the recipe this should take 10 minutes or less, but really, I don't know if you can see how thick it's becoming. Just go another minute or so. And then basically we're just going to pour it into the 9 by 13 inch pan. Yep. Okay. So I am going to turn it off now. It will keep thickening. Get my gloves. So now I'm going to pour it into my 9 by 13 inch pan carefully. Space. If I had a third hand, it would be very convenient to get the last bit, but I don't. So we can go back to the main counter now. All right. So what I'm going to do is I've got my beautiful toppings here. I'm going to pour my marinara into the toppings. And again, if you were going to use jarred sauce, it's the same amount, 3 cups. And that's generally what most jars of marinara sauce are, 3 cups. It's amazing how thick this got so quickly. I'm going to pour it in. You can freeze this sauce. I have done this, by the way, and then I have it, just in my freezer. I do a lot of batch cooking and freezing it. This recipe came to be because when I was living in Southern California, I taught at culinary schools. I've been teaching culinary schools for over 20 years now, and I haven't been able to find one up here in Northern California. But some of the schools were like, you cannot use anything from a can or a jar. Like you could use tomato paste, but they wouldn't let me use jarred sauce when I was doing the lasagna. I'm just going to mix this up. And so I had to quickly learn how to make a marinara, but that would be ready in the time frame of the class, which was 90 minutes. When you do it on the stove, it can take a lot longer. So I'm just stirring this up. It smells really good. I mean, you will put this right now over pasta or a potato. This is going to be our last layer. And now that polenta, it's pretty much almost firm now, almost like cornmeal, but it will thicken more as it cools. Now I'm going to pour, I don't know if you can get this, the pesto over the top. This was a recipe I created. I'm one of the instructors in the McDougall program for cooking, and the program isn't for cooking, but I'm one of the cooking instructors. Dr. McDougall will be doing a panel today. And so I often create recipes that aren't in my book for his course. And this was one of them that I've been doing for a while that is popular. So we're just going to get it all out. And then we're going to smooth it over the top. Another thing I do like about the Blendtec, and again, I have no affiliation to blender companies, is that it's easier for me to get it out of the square shape than it is the round shape, and it doesn't seem to get stuck on the blade. So I end up wasting less of the content with this shape. So I'm going to get a special tool now. You don't have to have this. It's called an offset spatula. You can get it for about $7 on Amazon. Because it's offset, it's just easier to spread than using a knife. So I'm just going to try to spread it all the way across the top. It's almost like, it's like I'm frosting a cake, but it's amazing how this polenta is like, it firmed up so fast. You could almost cut it now, but we're going to bake this at 350 for 30 minutes. And I like it better the next day. I don't understand these people that don't like leftovers, because I always like them better than the first time. I think flavors, especially in soups and stews and chilies, get a chance to blend. So we're just getting that over the top. There we go. And now I'm going to get a slotted spoon. I'm going to add my topping. Beautiful. I love artichokes. I would say they're maybe my favorite vegetable. Well, maybe broccoli first, but they're so good. And if you have an Instant Pot, an 8-quart, you can actually cook 4 large artichokes in about 7 minutes. That's the other thing about the Instant Pot that's so great, is you can cook things that take a long time in a short amount of time. So for example, oats, which is my favorite type of oat, more than steel cut or rolled or instant, that would take an hour on the stove. But if you do it in an Instant Pot, it can take 5 minutes. Corn on the cob, you can actually do in what they say 0 minutes, which is less than 1 minute. So it's a really great way to do things that can take a long time quickly. So we're just going to spread that over the top. And then after it's done, I always let it rest a little bit, just like a lasagna, before cutting it into squares. I get at least 12 squares out of this. And then I let people embellish it with whatever they want. So for example, a lot of times I'll make these, what I call pepperoni mushrooms, in the air fryer as a topping. I would put out black olives, something called faux Parmesan, which I could show you. Actually, maybe I'll show you what that is. So I can't make it for you because you have to have a very dry blender, because if you blend things like grains or nuts in a blender that has even 1 drop of water, you'll get a pesto and not this powdery stuff. So basically what this is, and the recipe will be in the PDF if you just write us at help@chefaj.com to send it to you. So what this is oats, nutritional yeast, and a little bit of salt-free seasoning. In my case, I use Benson's Table Tasty. The original version of this in my book on processed had nuts instead of oats, and it was delicious, but very calorically dense. So I came up with a lower caloric version. I'm just going to sprinkle this over the top, and I'll also have this table side if people want to add this. But this is just like having some Parmesan cheese. This is good if you have or popcorn. This is great on steamed vegetables, especially broccoli or cauliflower. And it's also good on the red lentil chili or the red no lentil chili. So I'm just going to sprinkle that. I did not preheat my oven. I probably should have done that, but I'm using the Breville as my oven, so it takes a lot less time to preheat. And that should be enough. This smells really good too. And I'm just going to stick this in the oven and I'll be right back. You don't have to follow me there. I'm just. So that's it. Okay, we got a Houston. So we have a problem. This doesn't fit in my Breville because of the size. So I will go to my regular oven, which I don't like to do because it heats up the whole house, but we don't have a choice. Okay, so that's 350 start. So we'll just wait for that to preheat.